Hello. This is how you know it's live. We're going to talk about how not to use the Enneagram. I am a little bit late because Instagram is just basically not playing nicely with StreamYard, and that's okay. So I had a client one time, we were getting ready to talk to their entire organization around the Enneagram and communication. So if you are new to the Enneagram is a personality framework. So a personality framework that really shows us how we and why we think, act, and feel the way we do. So the important part of that is the why, because why we think, act, and feel the way we do impacts everything. So when we are talking about the deep whys, that can get a little bit touchy sometimes at work. So when we were having this conversation, I was like, yeah, so tell me more about what people are hesitant about. Why are they concerned? What is what's their fear, which is totally legitimate. And so she starts describing to me this experience where another personality assessment framework was being used, and it really became part of their performance review. It became this way of manipulating people in the office. And I'm sitting there and I can feel myself just getting more and more angry, more and more frustrated, because that is never the intention of really any personality framework, but especially not the Enneagram. So if you're listening live, I would love to know if you've ever had an experience like that. Unfortunately, the majority of the experiences that I have heard that are those negative ways to use personality frameworks have been with the DISC assessment. I don't think it has to do with that particular assessment. I think it has to do with whoever those facilitators were and that organization and how they chose to use the Enneagram or use that assessment. But here are a few things about how you use the Enneagram at work and really how you use the Enneagram anywhere. So first and foremost, your personality is not your habit. The habits that you have developed in your life, it's not your Enneagram type. Your personality isn't the things that you do that are irritating to other people. They have a role in that, but your personality is the way that you see the world. It's not a vibe that you give off, and it's not your identity. So these are really important things to know when we start talking about using a personality framework at work, and particularly the Enneagram. So some people are like, well, I can't change my personality, and so this is how it's going to be. While the first part of that sentence is true, you cannot change your personality because it is the way that you see the world. That it does not mean there's nothing you can do about it. So I want to set that up. First of all, that your personality is not your habits, your personality is not a vibe, and it is not your identity. So your personality is the way that you see the world. And because it's the way that you see the world, it doesn't really change, but you need to learn what to do with how you see the world. So here are 3 ways that you should never use the Enneagram. 3 ways that the Enneagram at work in particular should not be a part of this decision. So first of all, it should not be a part of hiring. The hiring matrix, whether you're choosing somebody to be on your team or not, the Enneagram should not be a part of that decision-making process. It could be something that you do as part of onboarding, but it is never a part of hiring, because every personality type is expressed uniquely to the person. So you are hiring somebody for their skill set, you are hiring somebody for their experience, you are hiring somebody for their expertise and the way that they add to your culture. You are not saying, hey, I need an Enneagram 3 on my team, or I need an Enneagram 5. Never use the Enneagram as a part of a hiring decision. Now, it can inform onboarding. It can help you see what types of pitfalls or predictable synchronicities you're going to have. But the Enneagram is never, never, never part of a hiring decision. So don't do that. Number 2, the Enneagram should never be used as a sword as a way to attack people, and particularly not in a performance review. So when you have established the way that people see the world and the way that they look at the world through their personality lens and what's happening for them, it does not come out in a performance review as a way of attacking. Well, because you're an Enneagram 7, you're disorganized. Absolutely not. Because you're an Enneagram 9, you're always late. No, ma'am. This is not how we use the Enneagram. A performance review is about behavior that we are seeing that is enhancing and advancing the mission and goals of your career and the company, and how some other behaviors might be inhibiting that. A performance review is never about your identity. It's never about that. Your personality and your identity are not up for review. So we're not reviewing that. We are reviewing your performance, which is about behavior. Does that have to do with your Enneagram type? Absolutely. But in a performance review, it can come across as attacking. So I don't know if you've ever experienced that. Anybody else ever experienced this? So you don't want to attack people using their Enneagram type in a performance review. The third thing, that was number 2. Number 3 is that it is not a shield for bad behavior. You can't just say, oh, well, I'm a 4, so that's how I'm going to be. That is not how this works. It is never, ever, ever a shield for bad behavior, for unhealthy behavior, or especially toxic behavior. So I was a part of an organization one time, and the leader was an Enneagram 8. Now, Enneagram 8s are fantastic leaders. Actually, every type can be a fantastic leader. There just happen to be a lot of 8s who lead because they tend to jump to the front because they are kind of managing the scene. They develop a lot of early leadership experience. And so there are a lot of Enneagram 8 leaders. And this particular Enneagram 8 leader had a really bad habit of really monologuing, just talking, and not listening to other people, or really not treating people with respect. They tend to have a tendency to lose their temper. Now, all of those behaviors can be connected to anybody, and they were connected to an Enneagram 8 in this sense. And what was happening in this organization, and I would kind of raise my hand and reflect that back, I would get, well, that's just how they are. They're just an 8. That's just how they are. And so what happened over time is that person continued this behavior, and over time, repeated stress that was causing this awful communication skills, the disrespect, and the bulldozing at times turned into toxicity, because that's what stress over time is. And Harvard says that if you keep a toxic employee, it is actually 75% more likely that you will lose employees more than you gain from keeping this one employee. So this toxic 8 behavior, I left the organization, several other people left the organization. This is what happens when you use the Enneagram as a shield. So we do not use your Enneagram type as a shield for bad behavior. So first of all, we don't use it in hiring. Second of all, we don't use it as a sword in performance reviews. And third of all, we do not use it as a shield to protect against bad or toxic behavior and to protect an unhealthy situation. So I'm imagining your next question is really, so what do we do? What do we do with the Enneagram, and how does it help you? So one of the best things that you can use the Enneagram for is first for yourself, to understand how you work, how you see the world impacts the way you develop your habits. It impacts the way you communicate with other people. It impacts the way you interpret other people's behavior and the way you set up your day. So, for example, I know for myself as an Enneagram 7, super detailed work like a spreadsheet is going to drive me crazy if I have to do it for long periods of time. Can I get there? Of course, you can do it for a period of time. But if my entire working life was really organized around detail work that wasn't about forward thinking, my Enneagram 7 self would really struggle with that. And I imagine if you're an Enneagram 7 listening, you probably would struggle with that too. Not that we can't do it, but it shouldn't involve the majority of my work. As an Enneagram 7, I know that I work best if I've got some autonomy, if I have some freedom, if I know where we're going in particular. Why? My favorite question, why? I am such a better performer. I'm a much better performer with a little bit of liberty in there to get to where we're going. I really struggle with micromanaging. Now, lots of people struggle with micromanaging, but that's why an Enneagram 7 struggles with it, because it feels constrictive, it feels limiting, and that hits on the motivation to avoid pain. That's how it gets back to your Enneagram type. So I know that about myself, and I structure, because I lead myself and my team, I have to structure my days to know that if I'm going to do that type of work, there's some other things that have to happen, and I can't do a lot of it. Otherwise, the performance will tank in the things that I do really well and the spreadsheet. So that's the first reason we use the Enneagram. And I am hosting the Joyosity retreat in March for women leaders to help you figure that out. Not just what is my type, but how does that mean in the way that I work and the way that I work with my team? Because we're going to go through all the Enneagram types and components of their motivations and how that often shows up in the workplace. So that is one of the best ways to use the Enneagram. First, to understand why you're showing up that way. And then secondly, understanding the people that you live with and the people that you work with, the people in your community. Another really great way to use the Enneagram is understanding your communication patterns and having a common language with other people that you're talking about and talking with. So while we don't use the Enneagram as a shield for bad behavior, we can say, hey, I am struggling with this because my Enneagram 7 self is seeing it this way. That becomes a common language, not to say, I can't get any help with this. This is as an excuse, I just can't fix it. It's like, here's why I'm struggling. Let's come up with a workaround. That's why the Enneagram is so powerful, because now we have a common language. And you're like, if you've been listening to this and you're still like, I don't know what the Enneagram is. If you all know what it is, you now have a common language, which smooths communication. It makes it more productive. You can have a better opportunity to get your message across and understand other people's messages because you have a common language, because the goal of communication is shared meaning. So if you already have a common language, you're going to get to shared meaning faster, which means more efficiency and more productivity. So that is a key piece of that. And if you don't know your Enneagram type and you've been curious about how to figure that out, if you're like Googling and you come up with a test and it's got this like circle on it with these wedges that go out in all these different rainbow colors, or you get this report that's 16 pages long and says that you're 21-3 and 22-8, and you don't know what that means, you're not alone. It is because those reports are confusing and an assessment is really challenging to actually understand the deep motivations behind why you think, act, and feel the way you do. So I have 12 spots this month to do Enneagram typing interviews, which is the best way for you to discover your type. If you are curious about that, just let me know. You can write typing in the comments and I will come back and I can tell you what that entails and what you get out of it. But what you mostly get is the confidence of knowing you've really established your type. So those ways of using the Enneagram in the workplace are incredibly valuable. And the last one I want to talk about, so besides having a common language, understanding the way you work best and the way your team works best, it really helps create a culture of belonging, which increases your employee retention, which increases your productivity because of shared institutional knowledge, and you're not wasting resources finding new people, and you have more engaged and even inspired employees, which of course, again, produces better results. That comes from using the Enneagram in the right way. When you know yourself, you have a shared common language and you create empathy and belonging for the people who are there, that they are welcome as their full selves. That creates belonging, which gives you all those other results that you want. So to sum up, the Enneagram is a personality framework, and it is never to be used as a hiring decision. It's not to be used as a shield against bad behavior, or as a sword to attack people, especially in performance reviews. The way we use the Enneagram is first understand how we work best, how I flow in the world in the easiest and most productive ways, and then extend that to my team. Secondly, it gives us a common shared language, which improves our communication and productivity. And third, it helps us create cultures that are positive, where people belong. It welcomes the complexity of who they are and helps us understand how to best work together. That's what the Enneagram is for. And that's why it's so powerful. Um, if you are interested in coming to the Joyosity retreat and digging into the Enneagram for yourself, we're also digging into metacognition and leadership mindset, as well as your values. That is March 6th through the 8th. Let me know if you are interested in digging that as a leadership tool for you. Or if you're like, I'm not really sure, I don't know if I'm ready for that yet, and you'd like a typing interview, which is virtual, let me know. And I will give you the information about a typing interview, which is the best way for you to figure out all of these things that we just talked about. First, you have to know what your type is. And so that's where we begin. All right, everybody. I'd love your questions. I will come back if you've got questions on the replay. And for now, I hope that you continue to create a positive culture where you are, and even with all the complexities that it requires to be human. Thanks so much, everybody. Bye.